Hi everyone, welcome to our Twitter space. Today we'll be discussing Dyslexia Awareness Month. So I will be joined by two awesome educators who are very excited to start discussing this topic. So I do have the pleasure of being joined by our Similar partner, Jillian Johnson, and educator Mallary Lattanze. So thank you both for joining me today. So let me see if I can add you both really quickly. All right, so before we begin, we are celebrating dyslexia awareness by doing this Twitter space. We're going to be discussing how educators can be better advocates for dyslexic students and any type of students who are having, issues where they may be facing dyslexia and things of that sort. So I have invited the speakers, just waiting for them to accept it. Just one moment. Okay, I have Mallary in here. Let me invite her. All right, Mallary, I have invited you to speak. Hi, Jillian, how are you?
I'm good, Michelle. How are you doing?
I'm good, I'm good. So thank you so much for joining me, as always.
Of course, I'm starting to get used to these little talks now, and yeah, I always enjoy doing these with you guys. They're really fun.
Absolutely. So while we get Mallary,
Of course, I'm starting to get used to these little talks now, and yeah, I always enjoy doing these with you guys. They're really fun.
absolutely. So while we get Mallary set up, Jillian, do you want to just start with a quick intro for everyone listening?
Sure. So my name is Jillian Johnson, and I am an educator in Central Florida. I have been teaching elementary age level for about 10 years now. And this year, I'm in a more unique position. I'm basically working as a STEM coordinator and a resource teacher for our school. So, yeah, I've just been kind of plugging along doing that and just trying to make the best of everything that's going on right now.
Absolutely. And how's your back to school season been going?
Not too bad. Again, because I'm in this role, I'm having a lot of fun with like the creative side of what we can kind of do with STEM and
Mm-hmm.
sharing, ideas or things with other teachers and getting the kids excited about it. We just opened up a whole STEM lab in our school, so having the kids kind of come in and learn, what STEM is and um, just kind of getting them excited about the whole school focusing on that. It's been really really exciting.
Definitely. That's really awesome to hear. All right. So just waiting for Mallary to join as a speaker. All right. So while we get that going, let's kind of start off, and then whenever Mallory comes in, we can kind of go back to a question or anything of that sort. So I just want to start off by saying that this is all opinion based. We like to discuss certain topics depending on the month, depending on what is going on that month. This month happens to be Dyslexia Awareness Month, so we just like to have discussions, keep these discussions going, keep other educators informed as well. We like to hear everyone's opinions on these certain subjects, and we like to have it have a positive environment as well. We don't want to bash anyone for any opinion that they have, and so I just wanted to start that off with that. So Jillian, I know that your specialty is more STEM and things of that sort, but in your opinion, how can educators support dyslexic learners?
Well, I think preface this a little bit. With students who are identified to be dyslexic, it's more than just those students. Typically, a lot of the students that I've had, it's not just with that one specific label or one specific, deficiency, because a lot of the struggles that the kids are kind of experiencing, especially when it comes to their confidence and their abilities with reading, uh, a lot of the struggles that they're kind of experiencing and a lot of the support that they receive that helps seems to be somewhat similar across the board. Now, it's not all, cookie cutter and one size fits all. But I've noticed that a lot of the students that, um, were identified to have dyslexia, any other kind of learning deficiency, they still benefit from certain things like, reading, reading out loud, and hearing the stories being orally told. Having, different different reading skills just constantly being modeled to them. Um, so they're able to kind of have those opportunities to be able to, kind of bridge the gap until they're able to kind of get there on their own. Um, but I will say, it seems like we are diagnosing these kinds of things a little bit better, not in
Mm-hmm.
the best way, I think, at this point. I can share a story about my own son who, he went kind of under the radar for way too long within the education system as far as any of his learning needs with reading getting identified. It wasn't until he was almost out of elementary school until we were able to get a psychoeducational evaluation completed for him and actually figure out specifically what it exactly was that he was struggling with so we could, further help him. Because, like I was saying before, we were trying these kind of blanket, uh, you know, uh, interventions to help him. But when you have, a specific disability, you need those specific supports, for that specific person and their specific needs. So, yeah, it's challenging because, like I said, I mean, it's learning to read is a difficult thing on its own. And then, throwing in some other, neurobiological troubles, it's a heavy thing, especially in the elementary age.
Definitely, definitely. And thank you for telling us about your personal experience. Because that definitely, I'm sure, hits home more so for you as an educator. To kind of go through those things. But do you feel like it helps you when you kind of encounter a student, with kind of like the same, similarities as your son?
Oh yeah. I mean, he always kind of struggled with the foundational parts of reading, like sight words were almost impossible for him. And I would pull out all of my best first grade tricks, like
Hmm.
I would do flashcard games and, I mean, writing the words in sand, or, any little thing that I could try to help him with. It didn't seem to do much. He was still struggling, and it was not for lack of trying or lack of, parental support or
Hmm.
even teacher support. I mean, his teachers were always, very, very inclined to help him. But the way that our education system is kind of set up, it's a really difficult thing to really support those kids and all of the kids in your class while you're managing all of the other expectations that are happening for the teacher throughout the day. And that's not an excuse for, kids going undiagnosed, or not getting the support that they need. But, it's something that we need to understand and be aware of, because there's way too many kids out there that are just getting pushed through, and, being okay with that, and
Hmm.
just, having them kind of figure it out on their own, which is what a lot of people end up doing. I mean, you guys had just recently released that blog post
Hmm.
with the Simblue CEO saying his own personal story on this.
Right, right.
And it's a sad thing, but, I mean, we have these challenges, we rise to these challenges, and a lot of times they can make us stronger or more equipped, because we're, adapting to what we need to. But it's a sad thing, like, as a mom and as a teacher, i I blamed myself for him going as long as he did without any sort of diagnosis being done. um, it was hard to kind of take that blame off of myself. And it's not, to make sure that he knows it's nothing of his fault.
Hmm.
I kind of equated it to his glasses. When he had to get eyeglasses, it was like, okay, well, the glasses make you, they let you see better and you're able to do your work better, right? And he's like, yeah, yeah. I said, was it anything that you did to make you need glasses? It's like, no.
Hmm.
Yeah, you just were born the way you were. Your eyes needed these glasses to be able to see the best they
Right.
could. And so he was able to kind of understand, okay, now I'm getting, an IEP where he
Hmm.
has, the individualized plan where he's getting the more like small group support and different accommodations to kind of help him, bridge the gap, similar to how his eyeglasses him bridge, his sight issues.
Right, right. But
So
that's a great way to put it. I'm glad that, you know, he was able to understand it in that way. And that it's
yeah,
really, yeah, it doesn't make him any different.
sure. And that was another thing that kind of hung me up too. Like, again, as a parent, as a teacher, I was on the fence of whether or not to get him the IEP in the first
Hmm.
place. And this whole process was happening at his end of fifth grade. So,
Okay.
he was going into middle school, and I'm in elementary. I'm not really
Hmm.
sure what the IEP even really kind of weighs. It's a little different in
Yes, yes.
secondary than it is in elementary. So I didn't know if it was going to really help him as much uh, as we wanted it to. Um, but I mean, we're a few months into grade. He seems to be doing okay. I mean, the support that they give with his IEP is extremely minimal, so it's not
Okay.
like I'm going to be seeing too much of any difference. But I guess I do feel in retrospect, I do feel happy that we did go ahead and decide to get him the IEP. And, whether or not he's actually getting a lot of support now, I'm
Hmm.
glad that he does have it.
That's good. That's awesome. My mom is a school psychologist, so she specializes in the IEPs, and she's the one who, you know, writes all the reports for them. So it's great to hear that, you know, parents get positive feedback from them, and then it is a positive experience for them. Because of course it can go either way, especially as a parent. So
Oh, yeah, for sure. And yeah, and as a teacher, again, I was always looking at this from the teacher lens. I knew this was document that would be able to, provide that support no matter where that child would, learn from.
hmm.
That document travels with them. And, it's all based on the specific, evaluations and reports and observations to kind of figure out what the, underlying issues or underlying needs are. So even that part was just really eye opening, like getting the psychoeducational evaluation done. Um, that was a huge eye opener as a teacher as well, because I never saw that report in its entirety, you know, until I went through this as a parent.
Right, right.
And it was so eye opening because it just, it basically, proved all of the things I already knew about my child as a mom.
Hmm.
Like I already knew he was really strong in this. I already knew he struggled with, his working memory. But here I had this report, this official report that laid it all out and put words to my gut instincts or put words to, what I thought was maybe going on. So that psychoeducational evaluation, that was really great to get done and to, just have to I said to just kind of like put words to all of the things that I was kind of feeling. And
Definitely.
then that was the big piece to be able to move forward and get him his theoretical eyeglasses for his
Right,
for
right.
his reading needs.
Hmm. That's awesome. So I think we're having a little bit of trouble adding Mallory as a speaker. Jillian, how were you able to join as a speaker?
So something just kind of popped up when I joined.
Okay.
I would maybe suggest if maybe Mallory left and then came back.
Yeah, we tried that as well. I've sent her a few invites. So weird that it's not working.
Let me see, because I think maybe if I switch to listening,
Hmm.
um, I wonder if it will let me switch back.
How do you switch?
When I click the three dots,
Hmm.
one of the options is switch to listening.
Oh, okay.
Mallory, when you're in, when you see the three dots, does it say anything about? Because I see like turn on captions, view rules, adjust settings. I see.
Yeah, I'm sending her messages as well.
Yeah, I really want to hear from her because I started following her like within the last month, and
Hmm.
she has the best stuff to share. Like
Yeah,
really, really good stuff. Yeah,
yeah.
like
I know. I'm
amazing.
I'm
I
excited to
really want
hear
to
as
hear.
well.
Let me see. Hmm.
Okay, she left. I think she's gonna try to come back in. I think this happens every time we try doing one of these.
I wonder if it's like when the second person comes in.
Yeah, I think so. Okay, let's see. Okay, we may have to end it and then restart it. Or Jillian, can you go as a listener and then maybe Mallory can join as a speaker? Maybe we can
Let
like
me,
switch off.
yeah, let me try that. So I'm going to switch.
Okay, Mallory, are you able to join as a speaker now? Hmm. So it still doesn't seem to be working for her. So sorry to anyone listening. We are having some troubleshooting issues. Just trying to get our speaker on here.
There should be a little microphone button that says request to speak. I sent a screenshot in our group message.
She says she doesn't have any of those icons, which is really weird.
Oh.
Oh, wait. I think Mallory, is it working now? I think you're muted.
Hi.
Yay!
Hi, yay!
We did it.
Only 20 times the charm.
That's all right.
It's okay. We did it. Sometimes it takes a little longer. That's fine.
I'm so sorry for all that confusion.
No
I didn't
worries.
realize how hard it was. I'm on the other side, so I don't really know,
Right.
what to
No,
do on
it
that
was good
side.
to hear Jillian though, so it's all
Mhm.
good.
Okay, awesome. So Mallory, why don't you give us a little background on you, and then we can kind of dive into the questions.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I am currently working in a private school. It's my first year. I am a learning specialist, and I was hired because I am a licensed dyslexia therapist and CALT, which is Certified Academic Language Therapist. And so,
Okay.
essentially, that means that you have to get your graduate degree in a related field. So, I got my master's in reading, but I had to go through a dyslexia therapy program. And so I did that, got all the 700 clinical hours and videos and case studies. So it took about 2 years to complete. I
Hmm.
did as fast as I could because my goal was to become a therapist because I'm also someone with dyslexia. I got
Okay.
diagnosed in second grade. And the funny thing is I was diagnosed in Georgia, and on my paperwork on all my IEPs, it says SLD for specific learning disability because they would not say the word dyslexia.
Oh, okay.
But if you look at all the testing and even the comments from teachers, and the funny part is that back then parents didn't get a printout; they got the pink carbon copy of everything.
Hmm.
So that's all I have from my parents and just the teachers' comments and the evaluator comments just scream out this child has dyslexia. And as we know, dyslexia is a specific learning disability. So that's what I was diagnosed with.
Okay, very interesting. And I grew up in California, so I'm sure it's interesting about how the different states do things and.
Yes. So Georgia has, Texas is definitely, I'm in Texas for anyone listening,
Mhm.
and Texas definitely is the leading state as far as protecting and providing intervention and services for students with dyslexia and adults. A lot of the colleges,
Mhm.
like I was able to get accommodations in grad school because I attended a Texas school. But in Georgia, it did take a couple decades, more than a couple decades, but I believe it was 2018 or 19 they passed a bill where you basically have to say the word dyslexia and accept it. And
Oh,
so it's more well known in public school districts. They have to learn the characteristics of dyslexia. And still follow Fulton County schools in Georgia, and it's really great to see the progress that they're making.
that's awesome. That's very, very cool to hear. So I really appreciate your background. And I've never personally ever heard of like a dyslexia specialist. So that is really, really cool to hear that there are more avenues that educators can take to kind of be more specialized and, certain types of learning and things of that sort. So I think that's very awesome.
Yes. No, it's one of the great things, like I said, about Texas. Pretty much every school, public school district, and of course, lots of private schools, they have therapists. And if they don't have a
Mm,
therapist, then they have trained teachers. So when I was working for Houston ISD, which is the largest public school in Texas, and I was able to train hundreds of teachers every month on what dyslexia is and the characteristics of dyslexia, and meet with teachers and coach them on how it looks like in elementary, middle, and high school. And every campus had at least two trained interventionists, not just their teachers,
wow.
but
Hmm.
interventionists to provide, be available and provide services. So it's just really amazing. Like, it's not a perfect system, but I always tell people, I've taught in multiple different states, and I come from, a state where that's not even heard of yet.
Hmm. Yeah, that's really, really interesting. Considering we're all part of the US, but yeah, it's
Yes.
interesting that each state kind of does their own thing.
Yes.
So Jillian kind of answered this question already, but for you, Mallory, how do you think educators can support dyslexic learners?
Well, definitely you need to be trained. You need to be
Mm,
trained on what is the definition of dyslexia, the characteristics, because it's not just the interventionists that are working with them one-on-one or in small group, but every teacher, whether you're in reading, math, science, social studies, needs to understand the science of reading and how literacy is in every subject. If you have a student who is not doing very well in math and they're an upper elementary or a secondary student, then it probably is the fact that they can't read the math problem, because we
mm,
know that once they get into those later grades, they have to read more.
mhm.
And so they might be able to compute, and that was one of the things that my math teachers wrote in my paperwork when I was little, is she literally wrote, if words taken out of the problems, Mallory could do the math. And it's like, I wonder why.
Yeah.
So math grades could have been a lot higher. So
Mhm,
I think it really starts with, you need to have a foundational training about dyslexia, the characteristics, and then of course those reading teachers especially need to be trained in the science of reading, so that they
mhm.
provide a structured literacy program.
Wow, very interesting. These are all, very new things to me. And are there different types of dyslexia?
So that has been, I've seen that around.
Mhm,
So here's my professional opinion.
mhm,
There's no two dyslexics that are the same. Just
mhm.
like there's no two, human beings with autism that are the
Right.
same. And so I think, so for me, like I try to use this example. There are some dyslexics that are very, very good at memorization. Think about our famous actors with dyslexia,
Mm,
including Tom Cruise. Like, he's a pretty renowned like dyslexic, and so they do very well at their job because they memorize their script. Once they know what the word is, they memorize it. For me, I can't memorize it very well at all. I was
mhm,
very bad at my multiplication facts. You give me something to memorize for, whether it's a skit or a play at school, I would be horrible at it.
mhm.
um it's going to look different, especially on when you're diagnosed as well, when you receive help. So it's only going to get worse. So I was able to get help when I was younger. However, I really didn't learn how to read until an adult, until I actually went through the therapist program myself. Like I remember there was
Interesting.
like a day where I was crying because I was like, why wasn't I taught this as a kid?
Yeah. Oh, that's really interesting. And Jillian, feel free to jump in at any time. But typically, what kind of challenges do dyslexic students face?
I would say definitely confidence and anxiety.
Mm,
Again, it's going to look different if you don't really come from a family or a community or a school that is going to provide the instruction that helps you as a learner, because we know that dyslexics just learn differently. Then there's going to be even more challenges. But I think I can confidently say that confidence and anxiety is a challenge for every dyslexic student. For me personally, from first grade all the way to fifth grade, I threw up every single day for the first week of school
wow.
because school was a place of anxiety.
Hmm.
And I wasn't sick. I just made myself sick because I was
Hmm.
so anxious. So I went to the counselor and I even had like a behavior plan on like how to like calm myself down. And when
Hmm.
my youngest sister was born, I would carry around her baby picture with
Yeah.
me. And
Oh,
because
cute.
it was, but anxiety definitely stayed with me for many, many
Hmm.
years, and I even through adulthood, but I definitely gained more confidence. And so as a teacher, like my students who have dyslexia, I tell them my goal is not for you to be a better reader or writer. My goal is for you to become more confident, because if you're more confident, surely you're learning skills to be a better reader.
That's really
Absolutely. And
interesting. Hmm. Go
that all
ahead, Joy.
trickles over into everything else they do, you know? I mean, because like my son, for instance, was super strong with math and his computation. And again, just like you said, Mallory, when those words are in there, it's like he forgot everything there is to know about doing that math because there's words involved. And, you know, if they have that confidence lacking in their reading skills or really in anything, I mean, it trickles over in everything else. So, you know, when it comes to doing a new topic in science or, uh, you know, even something out in PE, anything. When their school day, when they get to their school and their day starts until they leave, that anxiety that you were just describing is, I mean, it's like following them around the entire school day, you
Yes.
know, and how they're approaching, you know, not just the work they're doing in class, but also how they're dealing with their friends or their peers or the teachers. And then, you know, a lot of times you're possibly seeing behavior issues. And, you know, I mean, we've seen quite a bit of a shift in anxiety becoming even more great within the last couple of years. The kids just feel so much pressure and like they're not doing it what they need to enough. They just don't have that confidence. And yeah, without that confidence and that belief, it's really hard. Uh, you know, it's a really hard environment to be able to learn in.
No, absolutely. And something you said about how it transfers to like their friends. So
Hmm.
because I'm a licensed therapist, I also do private therapy. And right now I have a college student, and she is brilliant. I even told her one session, I was like, if you and I were the same age, we would be besties. Like she's just an amazing person. And after weeks of working with her, I asked her, I was like, how do you feel? How do you think you're doing? We've met for this many weeks now. She goes, for the first time, the words, because I've been helping build up her vocabulary. She said, for the first time, I understand what my friends are talking about.
Oh,
And so, and I'm paraphrasing from what she told me, but basically, she has more confidence in the conversations with her peers. And I remember that, like, I was that kid in high school where my friends are doing really well at their SAT prep, and I'm just nodding my head, like, I don't know what you're talking about, but I'm just going to nod my head and pretend like I know what you're talking about when you use
yeah.
a big word. So it does give you anxiety. So yeah, but that is conversations I have with my students, and I've told their parents, my goal is for you to be more confident.
That's awesome. That's interesting to hear you say that you're also a therapist. I think those things definitely go hand in hand, and it's very cool that you can kind of use both of those, traits that you have that you learn both to kind of do it in the classroom or, do it with students and then do it, in private sessions as well?
Oh, it's definitely beneficial because, in public school or even private school, you still have a set of norms and rules. And I'm very blessed where I am. I really get to be the therapist I want to be. But of course, when you do private setting, you have really the freedom
Mhm.
to do whatever you want. And so I remember working in the public schools. I the things that I learned in private therapy, it's like, ooh, let's see how this works for a larger group in public school.
Mhm.
And I would share them or modify it in a way that would work for a teacher that had a larger group of kids. And so I think both experiences definitely work hand in hand.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you say private school, is it like a religious school or just private?
It is a religious school,
Okay.
but I am with the student support team. So the private school really, they have a great team that helps kids with learning differences. And so some of the families will go here because they know that they're getting support. So we have two therapists at the private school, myself and someone else.
Mhm.
And so yeah, and there's more people on the team too that are just as wonderful. I always say, like, it's not about the title. Like, the title definitely comes with, okay, she has this set of experience and knowledge,
Mhm.
but I'm very lucky to work with colleagues that are just, they know a lot about how to help kids with learning differences.
Definitely. That's really awesome to hear. I grew up in, like, the Catholic school system, and, I mean, I'm only 28, so I wasn't, in elementary school that long ago, but I feel that things are definitely evolving and changing. I don't feel that we had that much support when it came to those certain types of things, so that is really, really cool to hear, especially in that kind of setting, because that can be it's just, a different way of learning as well, so that I think that's very cool to hear.
It is, yes.
Mhm. So kind of questions. So how is dyslexia a barrier to learning?
So the processing time and time to learn how to read and write is definitely a barrier. So teachers definitely need to provide that wait time. We don't ever want to, like, of course, like, rush them, especially because it does affect that. But something to think about is we are born to speak, but not born to read. So
Mm,
dyslexics and every child have to be taught to read and write. And if they're not taught in a way that they can learn, like knowing that dyslexics learn differently, then it will always be a barrier for them to learn. And, until the end of second grade, you're learning how to read. So if you're
mhm,
not getting that instruction on how to learn in a structured literacy way, like in a multisensory way, like everything that we know about what works for students with dyslexia, again, what works for students with dyslexia works for every child. By third grade, the expectation is to read to learn.
Hmm.
So we have to really think about, the barrier is we have to have them learning how to read by the end of second grade,
Right, right on.
because it's just going to be a snowball effect. Um, and so I had an IEP from second grade to eighth grade. My
mhm,
mom is from Argentina. She does speak two languages because her first language is Spanish, but I never grew up learning Spanish because my dad is American, didn't speak Spanish. And so because Georgia didn't have strong enough laws, they found a loophole and they denied a reevaluation for me to get accommodations and support in high school by saying that because my mom spoke Spanish, that it would provide an unfit testing environment for me. So I
interesting.
went into which I had asked my mom before, like, what did you do? And she goes, Mallory, I basically just took it as they don't know how to help you. Like,
Mm,
it's not, and I had to take a step back being an educator now that they probably just weren't informed. Like, they didn't
mhm,
probably have the funding or the training. Like, it's just, they didn't know. You can't do something without knowing.
mhm.
And so I really, really struggled in high school even more. And I felt like the progress that I made in elementary and middle, I was set back in high school.
Oh, interesting. Do you ever see that happening or this is directed to both of you. Do you ever see this kind of, like, issue happening in, like, the present day with students? Like, maybe there aren't enough resources and you're not really sure how to help them or
Oh yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I think the number one thing I see is parents not knowing enough, teachers not knowing enough, and them going straight to the grade saying, well, they make good grades. And it's like,
Oh,
how long did it take the child to get that grade? because I got my accolades from being the star student and like the golden child. Like, thank God I'm the oldest out of my family. And so I got my praise from being the best paper passer outer and sharpening the pencils and the best line leader because I wasn't get it through grades.
Yeah.
But I also was the child that stayed up for 4 more hours to complete something just to get the B plus. And so I've heard from students that have made it all the way to high school, and now it's becoming a point where their coping skills aren't enough and they're afraid to go to college because them just making it by is causing so much anxiety that they finally fight and advocate and get testing, and then it's like, you've been dyslexic this whole time.
Wow.
So it is frustrating, and it will. I always say it will always catch up. And if it's not caught up, if it's not if you don't catch it K through 12, you're gonna have your college dropouts.
That's what I was really shocked about because, again, in my case, being a parent and a teacher, this whole process was way more mysterious than I ever thought it should have been. I mean, it's the whole point in me even getting the evaluation done was, for my concern and my own self kind of, requesting this referral for the evaluation to be done. I mean, it's and even I'm looking at his actual report now as we're kind of talking through things, and it's just mind-boggling how we can let our kids go for this long without really knowing what is going on under the hood, so to speak, right? Like, and it restarts almost every year with a brand new teacher, a new grade level, a new class, a new group of other students and their dynamics. It kind of restarts and changes every year. But yeah, I mean, we started doing this one screener at our school. It's called Early Bird. Have you heard of that, Mallory?
I have not.
So it's essentially a screener, and it's created for students who have not yet even had the opportunity to learn to read yet. So really thinking like the young kids, like kindergarten, first grade level. So before they're able to actually formally read, how can you screen them for dyslexia? So this was like a new program that our school was kind of using, and they were testing out on all the kindergartners. And I have to say, this screener was very time consuming. It had to be done one on one, and where you're sitting down with the student. And I mean, it did a great job as far as asking different types of questions. It hit on different things with the different components in reading. Or again, this is without them actually knowing how to read or having any of those formal instruction before. But I I don't think a lot of teachers were happy about it, because it took a ton of time away, for them to be able to do this, and it felt like they were kind of just like with anything where you're having to do something new and you don't really want to, and it takes away your time. You don't want to do it. You don't see the value in it, or you have other things you need to be doing. So I mean, it did get a little bit of pushback from some of the staff. We'll see, what kind of results it kind of pulls up, and if we can kind of identify certain students before any of those kind of stories you were sharing, Mallory, about like going all the way through high school, and then finally having an official understanding of what's going on. So I mean, it seems like people are trying. They're trying to make this whole thing see and identify our students earlier and get them the support they need. But just like with anything, it's a lot of time. It's just, yeah, it's a process.
It is. I will give you some good news. So every a lot of the states are mandating, so it's a state mandate, not a public school or a city or anything, for these screeners. So Texas has a mandated screener for K through first, but there's a lot of different screeners. And so, without going through the whole list, there are some that I definitely have loved because they're not so time consuming. I actually was one of the people in the public school district to train the teachers on how to administer it. So I think it's just kind of like investigating what other screeners are out there, but there definitely needs to be a team if it's not with the screener company to
Hmm.
know the outliers. Because if there's a district that really doesn't understand dyslexia and they're coming up with the discriminators for how like who's going to be flagged for at risk for dyslexia, you could have 90% show up. And so it shouldn't be that much. And so you do have to have a team that really knows about dyslexia so that when you give the screener, the results are valid. Does that make sense?
Yeah. What would you say the name of your screener that you suggested would?
So the public school used Renaissance 360. I really liked them. They were a great vendor to work with. And the results were really clear. MAP from the,
Hmm.
and what is it? NWEA. So many
Yeah,
acronyms.
yeah.
MAP is really good. I think now that you're asking me, I'm trying to think of another one on the top of my head. There's another one that I've heard that's really, really good too. Um, oh, well, Texas came out it's a Texas one. It's brand
Hmm.
new. They just did it last year. Texas Kia, I think it's called. But basically, they're different. You also want, so the second part I was going to say is yes, we need it for K through first. Honestly, professionally, I would say K through second. Um, but it needs to be consistent. Like you can't keep piloting different ones because whatever they take in kindergarten, if they're not flagged and they take it again in first grade, you want to compare that data. And then,
Right.
or if they got flagged in kindergarten but not first, it's good data. But it also needs to come with a universal screener. And so Renaissance 360 had a universal screener all the way till 12th grade, which was
Hmm.
really great. So it wasn't mandated, but they did it during BOI, MOI, EOI, beginning, middle, and end of the year.
Hmm.
And we would just look at trends and, of course, consulting with dyslexia trained teachers. Um, like, is this someone that we need to recommend for testing?
Hmm. I wish we just do a psychoeducational evaluation for every single student. Like every single parent, every single teacher had that at their disposal. It- yeah. I mean,
I
it's.
mean, anyone can request it. So, I mean, this is for everywhere. It always starts with an initial meeting to
Mhm.
discuss, looking at the data. But I always tell parents, like, you don't have to wait for a screener. You don't have to wait. Like, we might make recommendations on, like, let's collect more data to see, because the only thing is that when you get that FIIE, like a full initial individual evaluation, and they D and Q, like do not qualify, you have to wait a whole year. And it can get kind of sticky and messy where it's like you don't want to keep testing the kid.
Mhm.
Definitely, like I agree with you. It is available and parents should be educated on, yes, this is something that I can request. And teachers too, they can say, hey, I have a student that I have concerns about. I would like to meet and talk about it because I would want to recommend testing. Anyone can recommend it. It's just, does the data speak for that?
Right, right.
Well,
And
this has been super informative. Go ahead, Jillian.
no, this is just, yeah, it's very insightful. And again, being a parent of one and being within the system as a classroom teacher, it's just boggles my mind that how much of it is a mystery. Like
Mm-hmm.
and I know, Mallory, that's such a important thing she was touching on earlier and saying the training
Mm-hmm.
that, they provide for the professionals, that's probably like the best thing that we could be doing, right? Because it's taking that mystery out. And it's just yeah, it's a sad thing that, we could be overcoming a lot of these things. But just like what we've talked about before, Michelle, just talking about it in conversations like this, helps to bring more awareness.
Mm-hmm.
And even if it's just one or two or 10 other people that are hearing this conversation and they're doing something with that conversation, that's something that wasn't done before. So I take that as something positive.
Yeah,
True.
it's
Absolutely.
thought provoking. I always like to
Mm-hmm.
say I want to be someone who's thought provoking. So whether you leave here not having all the information, but then you go out to ask more, or you learn something that you didn't know, or you go to your school and say, hey, this is something that we need to consider and look into.
Definitely. Definitely. So on that note, thank you both so much. Again, I apologize for our little issues at the beginning. I wanted to make sure we still had a good amount of time to really discuss this. And so thank you both so much. I had a really great time on this topic.
Definitely. Yeah. This was really great. Again, Michelle and Mallory, you are a plethora of awesome knowledge. Mm-hmm. I'm super excited that we connected because honestly, for anyone who's listening, go on her Twitter profile because like even just within the last, 15 days or whatever, you were sharing all these resources and they were amazing, like really, really good stuff.
Well, thanks. I need to be more active on my Twitter, but the more people that like or whatnot, or even just ask, like, what do you know about this? I like to engage. So this definitely, when this opportunity came up to engage with you all and have this discussion, I definitely got excited about it because there is so much more to discuss. The conversation doesn't end here. So for anyone listening, tell everyone else, if you do follow me, I'm big city dyslexic because I'm a dyslexic in a big city in Houston, Texas, and a big state too. But I would love to continue the conversation.
Right on. That's awesome.
Absolutely. And this will be on our Twitter. It's also recorded, so it'll be on our YouTube as well. And we will also have a blog post with the actual wording transcribed so that people can read it if maybe you don't have the time to listen to, this actual recording. But again, thank you both so much. I'm so glad to be working with you both, and I hope to work with you again.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you all, Jillian. It was great to hear your story, and best of luck to your son.
Thank you.
You're amazing because he's got someone like you, and reach out to me anytime.
Oh, I appreciate that so much. Thank you. And thank you, Michelle.
Thank you, guys.
Michelle.
Have a great night.
Take care, ladies.
Okay,
bye.